God spoke to Moses saying, "Take the staff and gather together the assembly, you and Aaron your brother, and speak to the rock before the eyes, that it shall give its water. You shall bring forth for them water from the rock, and give drink to the assembly and to their animals." This is in chapter 20, Parashat Chukat. Now the Torah continues by saying that things turn different. Moses took the staff before Hashem as he commanded him. They gathered, Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation in the rock, and he said to them, "Listen now, O rebels, shall we bring forth water for you from this rock?" Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock with his staff twice. Abundant water came forth, and the assembly and their animals drank. God said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not believe in me to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you will not bring this congregation to the land that I have given you. They are the water of strife, where the children of Israel contended with God, and he was sanctified through them." God's inscrutable will, it's this subject as well as the beginning of the parasha, the beginning of the Torah portion of Chokat, the Abarbanel, the red heifer. The issue of the Abarbanel, it's again God's inscrutable will. Hard to comprehend what's involved here. The story, the narrative, is a story of the Moses and Aaron. While they are in a desert, they have people who are in a way thirsty, they want water, and they ask for water, so they hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. But what I'd like to zoom in today is to a better understanding of the whole concept of hitting the rock instead of speaking the rock. The punishment does not meet the crime. What exactly the narrative, and what type of message we can take to our lives with this. First and foremost, the narrative. The narrative is a story of seeing people who gets a very severe punishment. Moses and Aaron's their dream of life is to enter the earth Israel, yet God said, under no circumstance you go there. So all their wishes and dreams just fall apart. And the big question is, how come? What exactly they did so wrong, so badly, that they deserve it? God asked Moses to take the staff and hit the rock. So, in a way, you may say that God told him to speak to the rock. So, alright, so he spoke instead of hitting. But for that, he said, you and Aaron will not enter the land. So we're going to dig with different mefarshim and different commentators, try to explain it. But we have to go with the point of departure, the Ramban. The Ramban said several important statements. One of them, it's here in the Hilchot Yesodei Torah, in the Book of Knowledge, the law concerning the basic principle of the Torah. And he said, just word by word, the basic principle of all basic principles, this is the word of Maimonides, and the pillar of all science is to realize that there is a first being who brought every existing into being. And therefore, he go, is no way that we can initiate something and understand something better than the Creator who created us. In other words, only the Creator who unlimited is able to comprehend situation. Because we are limited, we have very small ability in that sense to understand. And because we are a monotheistic religion, which means we strongly believe in the Almighty God is one and only one, as we said in many prayers. Therefore, we believe that He is unlimited, and by being unlimited is the omnipresence. So in that sense, we have to take the commandment as is. If we go a little deeper in the Maimonides thinking is, and hear me out, he said, I try to translate it from the Hebrew language. Since unlimited, by its very essence, is unlimited, but His creatures instituted as limited, the limited cannot understand the unlimited because He is limited. Any attempt for the limited to understand the unlimited may destine for failure because his perception is limited. And the only unlimited who created the limited is able to fully, in that sense, understand the unlimited. So with that in mind, when you see the sentence that again it looks inscrutable, the first pasuk, they said, Hashem spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, this is the decree of Torah. So the decree of Torah you understand in simple language, and that applies to the entire mitzvot. But then you go to the saying that what is it? That they should take the red heifer. So the rabbis ask, that's not the entire Torah, that's one commandment. But they go to say that the idea of this is the decree of the Torah, it's just an example of something that if the other nations ask, what is the purpose of this commandment? The Torah states that this is the decree of the one who gave the Torah, and it's not for everyone to question. That's what Rashi said. So in that sense, we just take it first and foremost as a law. Now, I know it's hard for people because people like always to be logical and understand. And soon we try to give an explanation to many things. But we have to come from a point of departure of faith, which is the real idea that came from last week with Korach. It's not that he challenged Moses, he challenged God, told Moses. So that's the point of departure. We're talking first and foremost as a faith. Now we go to the specific. We start with the Meimeriva. The story, the very disturbing story. The Torah tells us that it was God commanded Moses to bring the water, and he hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. So Rashi, in a simple way, said they didn't speak; they just hit the rock. Here's the word Rashi: the sin was striking the rock rather than speaking to it, and they have been commanded. All right. So again, the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, challenged that, and he said, so what exactly the crime, the big crime? Let's say they talk and God asked him to use, they just basically hit instead of speaking. So Ramban said, the first statement he said, this matter is one of the great mysteries of the Torah. There doesn't seem to be an acceptable explanation for this. But he goes further to say that there is some idea. One, God wanted Moses to speak, and he used a staff, which means that he didn't follow clearly the instruction that God asked him. Fine. Because the God asked, "V'dibartem el hasela," you should speak to the rock, and he saw all the people around the rock, and he hits it.
Well, doesn't the next pasuk? I mean, that gives us a clue. Certainly, that it was more than just a matter of talking and hitting the rock. I mean, just for the reason Hashem said to Moses and to Aaron, because you did not believe in me to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. I mean, that's. So if you look at that,
back,
I mean, that's
good point. If you go back to the story of the Makot in Egypt, the whole 10 plagues, you see that God told Moses, "V'hamateh asher biyadecha," the staff that it is in your hand. So it means that God specifically asked him to use this staff for certain purposes. So the Ramban elaborates on that, and he said, אין נס גדול דיבור יותר מהכאה, which means in the level, if you put in a gradation level between hitting or speaking, it's in a way yan lo emantim bi, it's like demonstration of lack of faith. In a sense, since I specifically ask you to speak, I want you to demonstrate the highest level of nes, the highest level of miracles. So the Ramban of Moshe Menachman hold that that's the story, that's the problem, that it wasn't a proper demonstration. Not everyone agree. Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, the Re'em, he challenged that point of Ramban, and he said, number one, you tell me that the miracle it's only by speaking and not by hitting. He said it's hard to say it, because for people to see that there's no water from anywhere, and all of a sudden the leader hit the rock and there's water coming out, it is a miracle for them. There is another point, just a side point, in the Tfilat HaGeshem, in the prayer for the rain, there is a very fascinating line. We said, Zchor mashui min hamayim, please God remember the one who's withdraw from the water, which is the story of the Moses at the early part of his life. And then they said, Al hasela hach, Moses hit the rock, the sela, vayetzu mayim. So according to that poem, we read while we opening the ark and pray for rain, we said it's a great zchut for Moshe Rabbeinu, a great merit for him. And we end up by saying, Betzidkato chashchat mayim, because of Moses' righteousness, we ask God for water. So, if you tell me that it's something wrong with that, so how come they use it much later in the time of a great prayer to this very day as a part of the prayer for rain? Well, so someone tried to say that in Beshalach, in early book of Exodus, they said that Moses hit the rock. But over there, if you look at the text, it's written Tzur. It's not written Sela.
Right.
Here it's Sela. So again, it's mind-boggling. So according to Reem Mizrahi, Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, it's because he used the term OC or rebels. The minute he used the word rebels to the people, that's the issue of leadership. But even with that opinion, other challenged and said, if you tell me that that's the problem, so they should be punished right away, and it's not. It's see much later, after things happen. So it's kind of mind-boggling. The Rambam, in the Shmona Prakim, he said that it's a combination of two some type of anger. One is called Ka'as, which is anger, and one is more rogues, like infuriated, like very, very angry. So in that sense, they have a great, Moses shows his anger to the people when he said to them, listen now, O rebels. The people felt that Moses was a reflection of God, and they felt that God is angry at them, which was not. That's the Maimonides, the Rambam. Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman challenged the Maimonides, as you know, but 9 years after his passing. So he said, what exactly lack of faith you have when Moses was angry? And if you take an Aaron, the Torah used the word Beshalom uvemishor alach, that Aaron go in the path of God. So why he was punished? So there's a Ritva that said that when you use the term God is full of mercy, you know, when we say the 13 attributes on Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, and in the fast day we say God is full of mercy. So since Moses used the term of God full of mercy each and every time he begged God for compassion, yet if God is full of mercy but he gets all frustrated with people and then he hit the rock, it shows in a way a lack of faith, especially as a leader. Furthermore, the Ritva hold that it wasn't only Moses, Aaron also was angry. So again, if you try to put all of that together, Maharahl, the great Rabbi Yehuda Levi of Prague, he said in a book called Gur Aryeh, he said that it was the anger, it was a hitting the rock, and it was a listen, all you rebels. So all this combination is the attribute of anger. And the foundation of leadership and foundation of Judaism is the Simcha. The Rambam said in Hilchot Lulav, we mentioned that Rambam many times, that it's a part of the mitzvot. Reb Nachman and Breslov hold that it's a daily mitzvah to be besimcha, that the person should be in a state of happiness. You wake up in the morning, you have to think in your mind, it's going to be a great day. Today is going to be a great day. You have to say it to yourself many times. You have to, I have a friend of mine, he writes a list of wonderful things that happen to him every week, and he reads it when he wake up and before he go to sleep. So that's something that you penetrate to your brain right away. It's like taking out all the bad toxin from your thoughts. We mentioned it's like a person have a diet. So you see how the very serious diet he goes to. So you offer him a soft drink or something, he says, no, that's not on my program. So in that sense, he tried to, over the time, when he stopped the carbohydrate and sugar and certain things, you see that he healed himself. In that sense, there's also, in the same system, is the mental system, which means the person needs to take out all this feeling of frustration, anger, and let that toxin go out of his brain. And any demonstration of frustration and anger, in a sense, is lack of simcha, lack of bitachon, lack of faith. And therefore, this anger, that instead of faith, that's a problem. Faith carry a happiness. When there's a lack of faith, then you have this attribute of anger and frustrations. So it's like when you get those bills and it's written paid in full, invoice and it's written the rubber stamp, bread stamp, paid in full. That's the mindset a person should have when you see something that someone did it to you wrong, something happened not right. You have to think to yourself all the time, paid in full, it's over. I'm not going to carry those luggages. I said it many times. It's like you go nowadays to even local flight, and you see they charge you for luggages. And you're always thinking before you fly local, should I carry, should I not? I should pay another 30 or 25 or 50, whatever they charge you for extra luggages. And think about the idea, if you carry those luggages of the past, you can carry, but it will cost you. So in that sense, this, they call it haka'a kfiyatit. He forced himself by being angry to hit the rock. And God wants everything to happen with a happiness, with a gladness, with great will. And so Maharahl call it pgam bamidot, some deficiency in the proper character of leader.
What was the cause for his anger?
You can find all the excuses that people anger him, the situation anger him, the frustration, the shortcoming. Yeah. So it's a point of setback, this point of disappointment in any situation, in any position, especially in the leadership. But the pgam bamidot, pgam ba'emuna, it's like part of the proper demonstration of leadership, of faith. That was crucial because it's affected everyone. Now, Ibn Ezra, the great Sephardic rabbi, was strongly opposed to that. He said that Moses and Aaron fell from the high level of righteousness and spirituality. He said, yes, but he says, you cannot believe only in the part of the prophecy and greatness of Moses and Aaron and not in full. So in a sense, even they did it, he called it bishgaga. They didn't do it intentionally. Shimon Amorim. So what exactly happened? So he said, I translated, he said, the way that they behave in anger, listen, or rebel is a reaction of normal human beings, not high spiritual leaders. Instead of immediately fulfilling God's command to speak to the rock and bring forth water, Moses and Aaron changed God's order by starting to rebuke the Israelites. God did not order them to rebuke the Israelites, but they did it anyway. So God told them to speak to the rock, but instead they hit the rock. The first time no water came from it. Moses and Aaron had to learn the lesson that they had done something wrong. However, Moses took it upon himself to hit the rock a second time. All of this contributed to the punishment of Moses and Aaron. That's the Ibn Ezra. I'm reading it from one of my book, Tabletop. I translated the Ibn Ezra. So the Ibn Ezra elaborates. I'm going to tell you something that it's not even written here, just a little deeper in the Ibn Ezra. He used the word הפסק הקשר בין המושכל למושכלות, which means there is since Moses was the highest prophet, he has a tremendous connectedness, which means him and Hashem, in a way, there is a part that is so detached.
Right.
And the minute something like that happened, it shows some type of a detachment, and then they are so attached, and by doing so, it showed detachment, which means since all of his being are so connected to God, this type of behavior, it showed that it's like, in a sense, the humane part of him. So Maimonides disagree with that, with Ibn Ezra. They always argue. So Maimonides said, wait a second, if the whole scene was disconnected to God, what type of lack of faith you have here? What exactly lack of faith you express as it? So Rabenu Chananel said, just before bringing forth the water, Moses said, shall we bring forth water from you, from the rock? This implied that Moses and Aaron had the power, and they are the source of miracles. So clearly Moshe Rabbeinu should have said to the people, God shall bring forth water for you. So this view is easiest to understand and accept, because the Torah states, because you did not believe in me to sanctify me in the eye of children of Israel. At the end of the Torah, just before Moshe died, the Torah repeats this sentence. So in a sense, because he hold the miracle on himself, that people will misconstrue it, that we are like the people who take out the water. Instead, they use the word Notzi instead of Yotzi. Yotzi meaning that the Almighty, and Notzi is like we. The same they said about the angels when they went to Sodom and Gomorrah. They used the word Ki mashchitim anachnu et hamakom, that we are going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And they said that one of the reasons that Jacob had the dream, it's because those angels were delayed from return, since they attribute to themselves something that is fully God, and it's not any human attribution. So in that sense, God called it ma'altem bi, like the Rabenu Chananel said that it's appear like Moses and Aaron are magicians. So he called it hana'a meha hekdesh. It's like you derive some benefit for something that is sacred items. So you did not penetrate the emunah, the faith. God taught the miracles, which means those miracles has to improve the level of faith of people. Instead, it's like you're taking the credit for yourselves. The Rabenu Bacyhee and others quote a very beautiful Piut we said in Rosh Hashana. In Rosh Hashana, we said the Piut is like an additional prayer we have on Rosh Hashana that some incorporate, but it's good to know, even you don't say it on Rosh Hashana, you see it on the back of the Sidurim. They said, Ya'an nokesh be'eser, nahata bo mitot eser. Which means there is a number 10, eser. It's written here. It's like nokesh, notzi, it's in nun, instead of yotzi, which is beyud.
Right.
So it's like this letter attribute to Moses and Aaron godliness or God's attributes instead of God himself. And we never believe in a deity in any form, which means we don't believe in any emissary or intermediary or prophets that they are God. We believe in monotheistic God, which is no human can have attributes in a sense of God's actions. It's God himself, as we said in the Haggadah, Ani velo malach, ani velo saraf, ani velo ashaliach. God said, it's me, and it's no others. So Abarbanel collected all these interpretations, and he said that, he said something that it's very difficult to to understand, but I just mentioned what he said, and it's hard. He said that the punishment was not to Moses and not to Aaron. The punishment was to people, the children of Israel. It was the decree because of the sin of Israel. And he used the word me'altem, meritem, lo emantem, that's plural, and it's applied to Klal Israel, applied to everyone. Which means that's for everyone else, not for them. Not everyone agree with that. There are those who hold that it was the Aaron's sins of the golden calf that was paid by that, and Moshe Rabbeinu the sin of the spies paid, because God asked him to check haderech yaluba, the spies, that the way that should check the land, and he asked the spy to say hachazak or arafeh, is a strong or weak. So therefore, he's like, he didn't follow the instruction properly. But again, as we said, that's the Abarbanel way. Baal Hayikarim, Rabbi Yosef Elbo. Rabbi Yosef Elbo is one of the greatest rabbis in Spain in the 13th century. He wrote several books of Jewish thought, Jewish philosophy, and also Kabbalah books. And one of the famous is called Sefer Hayikarim, the foundation of faith. So he said, Moses was punished because he waited until the people protested to attend to their need for water. As a leader, he should have anticipated a need and reach accordingly. Which means this was the one time that the Jewish people complained bitterly to Moses and Aaron. They are thirsty and were not punished for complaining. But perhaps God was showing that he felt that their complaint was justified. So in other words, the expectation that they should create a miracle by themselves and show the people the ability, and is in a way he called it nezek la'emunah, damage to the level of faith. And he said something again, it's a very esoteric. He said that when Moshe Rabbeinu died, velo yada ish et kvurato, we don't know where Moses buried. So he said that that's including the secret of Mei Meriva, that we don't know clearly out of all of these interpretations what exactly involved here, what exactly happened here. There are others, I just mentioned another two before we go further. It's one of the Chidush Yarim. Chidush Yarim said that God instructed Moses that he should speak to the rock before the eyes of the people. The purpose was for Moshe Rabbeinu to make sure that people understood that God alone was miraculously providing the water, not Moshe Rabbeinu. Moses merely struck the rock without educating the people as to what was really happening. And I just like to add two opinions that over the years I have it, and I wrote it here in this book, but again it's opinion, that God punished the Jewish people because of their complaint, not Moshe and Aaron. That's basically the Abarbanel. But it's further on. The whole children of Israel lost their greatest leaders at this time. No further prophet or leader will ever compare or achieve the same level of leadership or prophecy as Moses and Aaron. So God's decision was that Moses and Aaron will not lead the Jewish people to Holy Land. The Jewish people received more punishment than Moshe and Aaron did, because the next leader was clearly not the same caliber of spirituality or in prophecy as Moses and Aaron. For example, only Moses spoke to God, the Torah said, face to face. So the punishment was very harsh, and Moses commanded by God basically to strike the rock only in the book of Shmot, but not here. And here is a similar situation, but God told him to use the staff to talk to the rock. But Moses did the same thing both times, rather than literally following God's commandments. So we might wonder whether one of the reasons that Moshe made a mistake was ego. But again, with all said and done, it's one of the things that we said earlier, we don't know. It's like if you see two modern scientists, so they develop a new area of studies, and they have all kind of ideas what's involved with that modern scientist. So with all the technological revolutions and everything, we get some comprehension, but the bottom line is we reach a point that it's hard for us to fully comprehend what's involved. No comparison full, but the whole idea is that since we believe in God as the omnipresence, as the ultimate, so therefore it's very hard for us to give a full explanation. I would like to go a little deeper with the whole concept of red heifer and Meriba. This parsha, again, it's called Chukat because it's one of the things that we don't know. You call it Adam ki yamut ba'oel, persons that basically die in the tent. It's in a figurative manner is that sometimes for the understanding the Torah you need to basically go to a level of struggling and frustrations for a long time until you comprehend something in the Torah. It's a lot of struggle involved with study the Torah. So the Arizal said, we don't understand in the first place a lot of things. He gave an example. Mordechai, in the book of Esther, he came from Shimi ben Gera. He came from such a family, and yet Shimi ben Gera was the guy who did terrible thing with King David. Yet Mordechai came out. You see that we said that Bnei Banav shel Sancheriv was the evil man that killed so many Jewish people. You have people who teach in Bnei Brak. So you see a lot of situations that the grandchildren of people who are very wicked or evil turn to be righteous. So it's a lot of things we don't understand. So he brought several examples that it's applied to a whole comprehension of how much we don't understand. Here is the result. And I would like to bring you the quotation where I took it from, so if you want at your time you can see it directly in the source. But he brought, in the three sources I found it, one is the Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen Milublin. I find it Michtav Eliyahu, Eliyahu Dessler, the Mashgiach in Yeshiva I study in the Chelek Bet, page 140. I saw it also in Ber Moshe, one of the commentators on the book of Shoftim, but they all quoted the Arizal. The Arizal of 16th century said that they, in order for us to getting a little bit vignette point of understanding, we can take the story of Manoach and his wife. As you know, it's a famous story of Manoach that was basically a very special righteous man that was commanded to he was blessed to have a child, and the child was Samson, Shimshon, but the child was Nazirite. And the whole story of his wife childless, and then they have the baby, and the baby was commanded to be the Nazirite, and he was the big redeemer and big helper, and eventually he died with Plishtim. So Arizal said, and again we entering here the world of Kabbalah, so again the same declaration, we are limited with our ability to explain it. We try very best, the same as Chukat. We try to explain why is the Parah Adouma, why is the red heifer, the idea of how it's either repairing for the golden calf, or it's the one who spread the ashes became Tameh, and the one who received it became Tahor, and all this. So in that sense, they said about Manoach and his wife that the angel came to them, and the text said in the book of Shoftim, he said that the baby that come out cannot drink wine. Okay? Now, the text said that Manoach was hearing the word of his wife. Now, if you look at the story of Adam and Eve, so Adam, the first sin was he listened to his wife. So Arizal said that either you call it transmigration, or you call it the Tikun, or you call it the spark of the surah of Tikun, of Adam, of the sin of the first man, Adam, is told Samson. What does that mean? That because Adam sinned in two things. One, he listened to his wife. Two, he ate from the tree of knowledge that is called Ta'ava La'enayim. They said about Samson that when he was searched for his wife, the sentence called it To'ana mi Plishtim, To'ana without Vav, which is the same as the letter Te'ina, Te'ina meaning figs. So the sin of the first man of Adam, it's two versions. There's one midrash said that it was the Geffen, it was with a vineyard. Another one said that it was the fig. But regardless, or they said that they took the figs and they dress when they realized they're naked. So in the repair to that, in the Tikun for that, that was Samson. So God, in a sense, the Arizal said, God wants to send Hashem Ratzah Lishloach Bnei Tmuta Letaken, which means God wants to send a new soul to repair the previous mistakes. So because the sin of the first man, there is need to Tikun, to repair, like Tikun Olam, repair, the spark of that soul need to come back and repair. So he said how it works. So they said, Vayered Shimshon Timnata. Shimshon went down to Timna. Timna is a place in several places in the Torah that they call that Yehuda went to Timnata, Shimshon went to Timna, and they said in several places that the Mashiach, the end of the days, also come from Timna. So what does that mean? So the book of Jeremiah said in chapter 29 as follows: Ki anochi yadati et hamachshavot. God Almighty said, I knew the way you are thinking, and you are thinking negative, you are thinking in a sense of destructive. But I, meaning the omnipresent the God, I'm thinking positively, I'm thinking for good. As an example, when Jacob mourned and tore his garment over losing Joseph, and he realized that Joseph left to Egypt and he doesn't know how things will turn and what's going to happen and how things are going to happen, and all of a sudden he lost his hope. He saw his son, his beloved son, disappear, and he thought that there's no hope for continuation of future generation, told Rachel. And they call it Yaakov Betanito. Jacob was in a time of sadness and sorrow and fast. And Yehuda was the one who tried with his brothers to make it happen, to go to Egypt. And Joseph went to Egypt. And with all of that, they said that God was occupied at that time with the Mashiach, with preparing for the Jews to be out of slavery. So in other words, in a sense, people are dealing with the small things, in a daily mundane things, while God seeing the big picture of the good. So even Jacob had a sorrow over losing Joseph, and Joseph was in Egypt in a jail, and the brothers who mourn over all the things that happened, and all the turmoil in the family. God was already planning their geula, their redemption toward that. So they said, if, for example, the Chazal said that Yehuda married Canaanite beginning, and then the Midrash said, Kevan shenetala, because he took a Canaanite. So the God said, Mashiach velokeach Canaanite, expecting the future generation to have the Redeemer come from Yehuda. And look what happened. So in a sense, the Midrash said, and I use the word of Midrash, they said, Mevi alilot umesi et bito letamar bito shel Shem, which means it turns that this wife passed, the Canaanite, and then the two sons, Er and Onan, died. And it's all of that, it was God set it up that Yehuda has the Tamar, which is, she's a daughter of Shem, which is the daughter of Kohen, and is the kingdom come for the kingdom, which means there's a merging of kingdom. And all of that happened in a place called Timna. It's the same idea of Shimshon. He get to the Timna, and in the book called Agadat Bereshit, chapter 53, he elaborates on that, and he said, and I quote every word they said here, and it's carry a tremendous power. They said, Sheva akarot keneged shivat yemei bereshit. We see about 7 example of barren, meaning usually barren women, that women cannot have child, and we have an equivalent as the 7 days of creation. Here is the word. Sarah, about Sarah, the wife of Abraham. The Torah said, Vatehi akara, Vatehi Sarai akara, that Sarah was childless. And they said in the first day, Yom Rishon, God created Shamayim va'aretz, heaven and earth. And they said about Abraham, when he met Melchizedek, the Torah said, Baruch Avram lekel elyon, konei Shamayim va'aretz. So it's an equivalent. The same applied to Rivka. The Torah said that Rivka was akara, that they pray, that she stood on one side, Yitzchak prayed on the other side. And the second day, the Torah said it's a rakia, which is the whole idea of the part above ground. And they said that the rakia v'hi mavdil ben mayim lemayim, that the rakia is separate between the water and the earth. What does that mean? So they said that when Rivka was pregnant, she went to the Beit Midrash of Shem and Ever, and they told her, which the Torah said it later, Va'avdil etchem min na'amim liot li, that is a separation between Yaakov and Esau. It's 2 different things. Then it's written about Leah, that she was snua, that she was hated. Vayar Hashem ki snua Leah vayftach et rachma, that Leah was hated, so Hashem opened her wound and she had a child. And the third day, the Torah said, Tachia haaretz, that it will be a grass, and the whole idea of Reuven that come from Leah, it was an iktir chitim that he found it where vayimtzedudaim basadeh, he find it in the grass in the field. Then we go to the fourth day. They said about Rachel again, she was childless, and they said about the fourth day that is the lightning. And they said, what is the lightning? That it's the whole, that all the other small stars are basically reflection of the what? Of the sun. So when Joseph has the dreams, he dreamed that all the brothers bowed down to him, and he dreamed that it was the sun and the other stars, right? So in that sense, it's an equivalent together. Then the fifth day, we said about the fifth day, it's Hannah. They said Hannah, the mother of Samuel, she was childless. We read it in Rosh Hashana, it's the beginning of book of Samuel. And she prayed because she was childless. And the fifth day is talk about Ve'ofi ofef al haaretz, that is the bird flying above the earth. And they said about Shmuel, the child that was get to the prophet Samuel, they said about him that he was poreach mimakom lemakom v'sofo chozer lekano, that he was in a way flying, going from one community to the others, makes a difference while he went from one place to another. Then about the 6 days, they said that the sixth was Adam. Why? Because he died by his wife. What is died by his wife? Because they said that he was in the Garden of Eden, and then when she seduced him, he ate. So they said that the mother of Samson, they call it Slafonit. It's in the book of Chronicles, chapter 4. They said about the Slafonit, which is the mother of Samson. And basically, Samson died by whom? By his wife.
Well,
right?
Delilah.
So Adam died by his wife, and Shimshon is the Tikun, is the repairing for the soul of Adam. He also died by his wife. And then they said about the seventh, this applied to the Tzion, to the end of the day, which is the same as the Shabbat, the seventh day. And the Torah said, Vayanach b'yom hashvi, Hashem rested the seventh day. And they say, Zot menuchati adea, that's the place I rest. But they use the term, Roni akara lo yalada, in Haftarah Kiteitze, and Noach, we use the word Roni akara. Roni is applied to Knesset Israel, that the Jewish people are like a bird, waiting for the time of deliverance. The time of delivery is the end of the days. That is they call the day of Shabbat, the day of resting. Vizmor shir yom Shabbat. So Samson get the power the same as the first man. So why are we saying all of that? Because we see here that you said in Yiddish, men tracht and God lacht, which means a person work hard and ask questions, and God in our language laugh. So in a sense, God has His own plan. When it's come to the Chukat Torah, when it's come to the law of Torah, when it's the red heifer can be the story of hitting the rock. It's just this examples of things that happen throughout our life that we have many questions. Yet our obligation, as Rabbi Soloveitchik put it beautifully in his book Halachic Man, he said our obligation first and foremost is to do in a sense of being cognitive. That's what they ask us to do, so we're doing it. On the same token, we have the concept of duality, which he called it homo religiasis, which means that the person has the ability, beside of doing what they ask to do without necessarily fully understanding, yet he still deserves the ability or the right to ask while he is doing what he asked to do. So that's the beauty of Judaism. Zot chukad Torah. That's the law of Torah, that you're doing what they ask you while you're always in a constant search for understanding. Thank you very much.